Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming today. We are here today to celebrate the life of Giovonn Joseph McDade. My name is Craig Sims, and I'm one of the lawyers that was a part of an amazing legal team that had the honor to represent Giovonn and his family. On June 24th, 2017, Giovonn Joseph McDade was tragically taken from this world by the hands of Kent police officer William Davis. Today we stand in the very place where Giovonn took his last breath to proclaim without apology that we have achieved a small measure of justice, and more importantly, to reclaim Giovonn's legacy. The family of Giovonn Joseph McDade has settled the federal court lawsuit against the city of Kent in the amount of $4.4 million. And Mayor Dana Ralph's agreement to install a memorial bench in this very place to honor Giovonn's life. This settlement is significant because it serves as an acknowledgement of responsibility by the city of Kent. While the city of Kent communications manager, Bailey Stober, issued a statement that they were fully prepared to defend this case, we too stood ready to fully prosecute this civil case and present our investigation to the jury. An investigation that I believe ultimately would have led to the conclusion that Officer William Davis was unjustified in killing Giovonn. As this lawsuit has come to an end, the question turns to where do we go from here in holding officers who crossed the line accountable. This lawsuit and others like it are important steps in that direction. But by the time that we arrive at a lawsuit, it is often far too late. How do we stop the unjustified killings? How many videos or press conferences do we need to see until we get to the point where we will no longer accept what is happening in our communities? Let me be very clear. My words are not meant to be an indictment on all police officers, but an indictment on the lack of accountability for those officers who clearly crossed the line. This is not just a black and brown people dilemma. This is a crisis for all men and women of goodwill in our communities. To help and resolve, what are you doing once you place a sign in your yard proclaiming Black Lives Matter? What are you doing after you post a like on social media? We have to do more. This is an issue that can no longer be ignored or talked about in quiet corners or in comfortable places in our home. We must act now. One of the things that we can do is follow the lead that has been set for us by Sonya Joseph, Katrina Johnson, Davita Briscoe, all of whom have lost loved ones by the hands of the police and have courageously advocated for police accountability and justice. They all serve as a continued reminder that even during the most tragic of circumstances, we cannot abandon hope. And with that, I introduce you to Giovonn Joseph McDade's mother, Ms. Sonya Joseph.
Well, I prepared a speech and it changed several times. I accept the apology from the City of Kent. My team and I were fully prepared for trial. The city wanted a mediation, and I accepted. I accepted their plea for mediation and resolution. The facts of the forensic report speaks for themselves. My son was murdered. And it was an inconvenience to the city, to the officers, to the witnesses involved, to Judge Mahoney. I boycotted an inquest, a biased inquest, and we reformed that process. Giovonn's case was the last inquest in 2017, December 11th. My son's case slipped through the cracks, covered up, and the evidence was tampered with. There was a blind eye. I'm angry. I'm angry at the police commission, who did nothing. I'm angry at the local prosecutor, Dan Satterberg, who doesn't have the balls or the courage to prosecute these killer cops. I settled to close the civil litigation. Giovonn is spelled with an O. Make sure to get that right on the memorial bench. My drive is fueled by integrity and equality and justice. I'm not motivated by money. I wanted to move forward towards healing and to continue to work on true accountability. My journey through this horrifying, ugly process led me to the work on police reform. The passage of 940 was just the beginning. I'm part of Not This Time and the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. Impacted families, community stakeholders, the Black Caucus, and many representatives stood up for police reform and had the courage to fight for change. We have dismantled policies that don't serve the community. We are divesting from old processes, and we have created a package of new bills, and these bills address holding law enforcement to a higher standard with a comprehensive measure that includes fairness, transparency, and accountability. I'm proud of all the hard work that went into the 2021 session. All of our bills have made it to the governor's desk. And I want to thank Governor Inslee for his leadership on police reform. I commend his efforts to heal the community and change the culture of policing in Washington State. And this is the right step forward. I'm going to leave you with one last statement. It's never too late to start doing the right thing and standing up for what you believe in. Our moral compass shouldn't be compromised. And I will never forget what happened to my son, and I'm in pain every day.
Take care of it. The next speakers that I will ask to come up to the podium together are family members, Giovonn's aunts, Ms. Sonya Joseph, Saima Joseph, and Jessica Davis, Jessicadavis.
Thank you all for standing here today with us where Giovonn took his last breath. Instead, we would rather be attending his graduation, being witnesses to his marriage to the love of his life, welcoming his firstborn child, and congratulating him on his future endeavors of becoming a business owner. Giovonn will never be able to reach those goals that he set for himself because he was robbed of that chance. And our lives will be forever changed.
For those of you who don't know Giovonn, he was brilliant. At the age of 6 years old, he learned how to play chess. He was a straight-A student, an all-star athlete, and family was forever at the core of him. He was motivated by being the best version of himself and constantly pushing others to be the best version of themselves. As it stands today, my family and I can barely stand to even watch the news because it's every other story is somebody else's son or daughter being taken. It's a relived trauma for our entire family. My son and my nephews and his brothers have been robbed of the milestone of the excitement surrounded by a young man being able to drive because they're terrified if they're going to be next. No amount of money or a bench is not going to bring back my nephew. We want Officer Rausch and Officer Davis in jail for the same life sentence that they sentenced my nephew to when they took his life. We want accountability for them assassinating his character and victim blaming. We want transparency for the evidence that was tampered with. And this is only the beginning, because an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Thank you.
I learned how to do it. Dig in deep.
The next speaker this afternoon will be Ms. Katrina Johnson, who's a supporter, and she's also the cousin of Charlena Lyles. And she's also a member of the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. Katrina is Katrina. Johnson is Johnsson.
Good afternoon. I never do these most of the time without my cousin, Miss Tanya Isabel, by my side. And she always starts it off for us, so this will be no different than any other time.
At this time, we're going to say his name. Say his name! Say his name! So what's his name? Let's say his name.
Giovonn's life was taken 6 days after Charlena's life was taken. And I have stood by Sonya and her family since we were outside the Kent in the police station demanding answers into his death. And so this day is bittersweet, but it's a victory. And it is to be celebrated, because when one family wins, we all win. And it gives me hope that someday soon, maybe my family will get the same kind of closure that their family is getting today. And it'll never bring our loved ones back, but it's a step in the right direction, that we will continue to fight. We will never give up. We will never quit. And we will be relentless so that no one else will ever go through what our families are going through. So Sonya, I salute you today because you have fought hard, and I love you, and your family has been dedicated to demanding justice for Giovonn, and this is a small step in the right direction. And please get his name spelled correctly. It's the least you all could do. Thank you. Thank you.
The next speaker up is Lesliecushman. Leslie is a supporter, an attorney, an activist, and also a member of the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. Lesliecushman, Lesliecushman.
Thank you. I was the citizen sponsor of I-940, and I'm a member of the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. Sonya has asked me to talk about the work we've done during the 2021 legislative session. We started last June, and the families behind me, the people around me, we have literally put in hundreds and hundreds of hours. We have 4 bills headed to the governor's desk. Each bill relates to the experiences of Sonya and her family and to the experiences of the other families. We are asking Governor Inslee to sign these bills. They will reduce violence, hold officers accountable, and save lives. We need truth and reality as we go forward. That is why a big component of our package includes community in the processes. Let me tell you about the legislation. House Bill 1054 includes restrictions on hot pursuits and shooting at moving vehicles. The officers who killed Giovonn engaged in a hot pursuit against an unarmed young black man who had committed no crime. Under House Bill 1054, the pursuit would be unlawful. The pursuit would be unlawful, and shooting at the moving vehicle would be unlawful. The public, the passenger, and the officer were under no threat of harm. Hot pursuits are exceedingly dangerous and should be used under strict conditions. House Bill 1310 is a statewide law on the use of force, requiring de-escalation as the default rather than violence as the go-to. The use of force by Kent officers was not necessary, and it was not reasonable. There was no crime being committed, and the officers should have left Giovonn alone. House Bill 1310 says the police should leave the area if there is no crime being committed or no threat of imminent harm. House Bill 1267 requires an independent criminal investigation, entirely separate from the local police and their colleagues. The Kent investigation was incomplete and inadequate and sloppy. Senate Bill 5051 beefs up the decertification process for misconduct and puts community members on the Criminal Justice Training Commission. They'll be 1/3 of the Criminal Justice Training Commission. The word misconduct is sugarcoating. What we are looking at is lawlessness and criminal activity and issues of integrity. Lying, falsifying evidence, intimidation, excessive use of force. We have to quit calling this misconduct and call it what it is. It is a violation of the law and of the public trust. Next year, we will fight hard for House Bill 1202 so that families like Sonya do not have to go to federal court to get justice and can take their civil rights violations to state court, and we will be fighting hard for independent prosecutors. Conflicts of interest are counter to justice. Since 9/40, over 100 people have been killed by police in this state. In the United States, 3 people are killed each day by police. Giovonn and so many others should be alive. Thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce you to the final speaker for the afternoon, Ms. Briscoe is a supporter. She is also the sister of Mr. Che Taylor. She's a member of the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability, and she also serves as the acting director, not this time. Davita Briscoe, D-E-V-I-S-C.
I am relieved that there has been some resolution to a long journey for this family who has been pained and grieved by the loss of Giovonn. There's a universal language that all humanity can comprehend, and that's the language of a mother's love. Sonya's love for Giovonn and to fight for justice and equality is demonstrated by the mark of courage, boldness, and a hard-fought fight. Sonya came to Not This Time to invite our support, but it was her leadership, it was her direction that caused us to change the inquest process, to fight for families to have representation in King County in the inquest process. She also inspired and was a part of gathering signatures for I-940. And now this last legislative session, it was our lived experiences that informed the bills that were now going to be on Governor Inslee's desk. This settlement will not compensate Sonya and this family for their grief. It will not compensate for Giovonn's lost potential, but is a mark of apology, an admittance of guilt, and some closure to the family. I'm happy to stand with this family. I'm happy to stand with everyone here in support of Sonya and her family and the remembrance of Giovonn, a precious life that was cut short unnecessarily. I was inspired by the way that she fought the narrative in the media to humanize her child, as not as a criminal, but as a son, a beloved son whose death was unnecessary. Thank you.
Those are all the prepared remarks that we have for the day, and we are available for questions at this time, and we'll also be available individually for some time after this press conference is completed.
Sir, I'm wondering if you might be able to speak to another effort that's just beginning in the state legislature for police reform.
Chair, I'm going to defer to others who are more familiar with the specific legislation efforts.
Okay. Can you restate that? I'm sorry, it was hard to hear. And if you want, you can come closer.
Speaking this morning with a state senator who is drafting legislation to ban what are called pretext traffic stops, such as those where an officer can pull someone over for just an expired similar, of course, in this case. I'm curious what your thoughts might be if that would be banned.
So House Bill 1054 does address discriminatory policing practices around pulling people over. Of course, people can be pulled over. The hot pursuit issue is when can you chase, and chases are inherently dangerous. They're essentially lethal force. We are very interested in the issue of pretextual stops and hope to hear more about this. As a coalition, we believe that policing is inherently racist and we need to address it. We're not as concerned with reconciliation as we're concerned with truth and with practical solutions to these issues.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am. We recently saw another lawsuit play out and get settled before it went to a jury. Tommy Lay, who was also shot by a King County officer, they received a similar settlement as what your family did. Does the settlement help? I mean, is it saying I'm sorry, or is it just, do you feel like you're being kind of tossed out? Here's some money, go away. I mean, how do you?
Do you want to answer it?
No, speak your truth. Take your mask off and speak your truth.
What does my lipstick look like? Beautiful. The settlement lawsuits in King County, actually in Washington State at mediation are very low. $1 million, 2.5. Those, life is worth more than that. And to have to fight so hard and go through all the hurdles and steps that it takes to just prove the innocence of our loved ones, to humanize them. It's not about money. I can tell you right now, every single family, it's never about money. It's about justice and accountability and making sure that officers don't continue to murder folks and that they get real justice as far as a criminal prosecution. Does it help? Does the money help? Yes, it shows that the cities are taking accountability, but to have an amount to increase the standards of what should be paid out, it's not fair. This whole process isn't fair, and
You're good. Take your time. Take your time. Good. Good.
someone's life is wrongfully taken. And a settlement doesn't bring them back. It's about raising the bar and holding the cities, the representatives, city representatives, and the officers accountable. Any more questions?
I have one for the attorney, sir. Is there any repercussions for the officer? This is a civil suit or a civil settlement. Are there any repercussions within the city that are going to happen to the law enforcement community?
Were there any repercussions in terms of employment repercussions by the city of Kent to Officer Davis and Officer Roush for their involvement in the killing of Giovonn Joseph McDade? The short answer is no. Should there be, and should there have been? The short answer is absolutely yes.
Was that ever an option to have employment repercussions brought upon these officers?
It was absolutely an option for the leadership in the city of Kent and the city of Kent Police Department. And what they chose to do is review an investigation that was not nearly as thorough as the investigation that we've prepared throughout the prosecution of this civil case. And in their scant investigation, they determined that it was their belief that the officers acted in conformity with the city policies and the state law. And those are two things which we strongly disagree with and believe that the city of Kent should review the information in light of all the information that was uncovered during our investigation and revisit that decision.
You brought that up in the civil lawsuit to make a employment penalty or a penalty for the officers. I mean, any kind. I mean.
Right. So that the employment issue and the firing of the officers in this case, that was not a remedy that we could pursue in this avenue. However, what we can do is we can look in each camera and we can ask the city of Kent, the mayor, the police chief, to hold the officers accountable based upon the information that is known right now and fire both of the officers, William Davis and Matthew Roush.
Have you received a formal apology from either the city of Kent or the chief of police of Kent?
You want to go first?
No, go ahead.
Have we received a formal apology, not as it relates to this specific process. What we did receive and what we saw through the press releases that were issued were general platitudes and statements that were always given and expressions of condolences. And those are the types of comments that they have to say, that they must say, that's politically convenient for them to issue. However, did someone call us and want to offer their heartfelt condolences? The short answer, once again, is no.
Ma'am, how much would an apology from city officials or the police department mean to you?
It wouldn't hold any value because the officers are still working and they're still free. They haven't been charged with a criminal charge of murder.
A question, you had some pretty harsh statements to Dan Satterberg in his office. I'm wondering, did anybody from the prosecutor's office sit down with your family and talk to you about their investigation and their review of the investigation? Or has anybody reached out to you since?
No.
Did you ever have any conversation?
I did have a conversation with Dan when my son was first killed. I'm sorry, I'm going to reframe that, murdered. And he basically told me that it's my word or the city or the coroner's word or the police's word. So there's nothing that can be done. And those were his words.
However, what we would invite Dan Satterberg to do, and I've known Dan for years. I was a former prosecutor, senior prosecutor with the King County Prosecutor's Office. I would invite Dan to contact me directly so that we can go over the information that we've obtained during our investigation to see if that sheds light and provides a different perspective on his analysis of whether to charge these officers.
Why don't you contact him?
296-9000. I will call him today.
Part of this too is, and the reason I asked the question was, this all happened before the passage of I-94, and the laws that govern prosecution of police officers prior to I-94 were particularly sticky because of all the analysis. But did anybody ever stop to try to explain that to you, or say that this is the reason you can't? Did you ever have a conversation? Make sure you never had a conversation with Dan or his prosecutors about the evidence in your case and why they didn't think.
No, they never addressed that with me. I addressed that with my own attorneys.
And one of the things also, Mr. Carter, that we can confirm is that based on my experience as a former prosecutor and what I believe happened in this case, is the prosecutor relied upon the findings that were made from the inquest several years ago after it happened. And based upon the facts as a result of the inquest, that's why the decision was made. However, based upon our investigation, we've gone way deeper than what they did in the inquest. And be mindful that the inquest did not have an antagonist, if you will, did not have a lawyer that was there testing the evidence. The prosecutor was the person or the individual or the entity that walked the facts through to the jury. And then in order to conduct the cross-examination, which is meant to be adversarial and testing the evidence, was the City of Kent's own lawyers. And so the process itself, the inquest process itself that led to the facts that were given to Mr. Satterberg's office to make the decision was flawed from the very beginning.
Well, this was the case that, I think if I'm not mistaken, showed Dow and St. Dan Satterberg.
Yes.
That the inquest system as it stood right
It's
now.
bias.
This is the last inquest.
Yes.
They decided it wasn't working.
No, we reformed it, and the cities tried to sue it because they didn't want the change, because they didn't want reform.
Well, the city did, but not the county.
No. It's still in the process. There's still a hold, and we don't know what will happen.
It's up to the legislature.
Yes.
And then even with that, what I will add is while we are still waiting for the inquest process to be reconvened, there are still so many families that are waiting and wanting answers and wanting justice for their sons, their daughters, their mothers. And they can't quite get that because the inquest process is at a standstill. And so until we can get a fair inquest process up and running, we still will not be able to find justice for those families who are still waiting for answers. Are there any more questions? Seeing no hands raised, any final remarks that you want to leave at this place, at this moment? And if not, that's okay.
It's time for change. And we need police reform now. And we need to hold killer cops accountable.